So let's talk about some ancient history.
So just history in general or ancient history? When you mean ancient, like what are we talking about? 1,000 years, 5,000 years?
So specifically, postmodern man.
Postmodern, okay.
Okay.
Which is, I would say, almost up for debate, whatever that means.
um, I look at ancient history as the period in history that's far back enough that there's a general claim around it that we don't know much about it other than the like artifacts that were left behind.
So you're saying when things were constructed, tools were developed, that kind of history.
Right. And we have we have an interesting phenomenon happening today that is making me look at this ancient history more closely. So we've already discussed many topics like the Mandela effect and history being written by the winners and all this stuff. But you go back in time and what you learn in school is generally, man was more primitive 2,000, 5,000, even 10,000 years ago. And there's sort of this concept about how far back the modern man actually goes. And then you start to see places like Mesopotamia. Everybody learns about like Egypt and the pyramids. It's kind of an undeniable.
Sure, it's
Right.
kind of in every history book.
Exactly. But then you start looking at it and it's like their estimation of just how quickly the stones were placed. And it's insanity.
You mean like how quickly the pyramids were built? What are
Right.
you talking about?
So if you just read out of a textbook
Okay.
and they say the Great Pyramid of Giza was built in like 12 years.
Which is faster than some Bay Area projects.
Right. I agree with that. But then you do the math and you say something simple like, okay, this is how many blocks are in that pyramid.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
And they're saying it was built in 12 years. And it's like, okay, so even if you had all the stones cut and quarried and all you had to do was take these
I know, it's almost laughable, right?
just do the math at how many stones a day you'd have to place.
How much movement a day that has to be per stone?
Right. And it's unfathomable.
Okay, I mean, there's discussions and debates regarding how they were built, right? Like, there's still no solid evidence of how they were built. That's one. Second part is why they were built. Like the idea, like the general, what let's say you open a current history book, it was a tomb. Why would somebody build the tomb that took, let's say, 12 years, pretty long time, still in general, and the massive construction that it took to build something like that for a tomb? That doesn't make sense. So there's the way it was constructed and the reasoning behind it was construction.
So all of this leads me to this idea of what's really got me curious is why is it important to manipulate the history? Because I'm looking at current things we've talked about, like the Mandela effect. And to me, I'm getting more and more convinced as I see more of them popping up. I'm not so sure I'm going to get on board with the we're in a different timeline theory as much as they're pushing to see how much they can like alter right under the current generation. Because it's really easy.
3 generations down.
Right.
No problem. Yeah.
Because you weren't growing up with it. So there's that. And then, like, what's the motive, though? Like, this is what's really hard for me is, I'm looking at the other thing that's going on in Göbekli Tepe, where they found something, they got started excavating it, and now they're literally just building a tourist site over it and ceasing all excavation of it?
I would say a very general, easy question. First of all, it's control of knowledge, control of power, right? You control history, you kind of control the knowledge, and you have the power.
Okay, so it's a power grab.
Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it's always a power grab.
But I'm having
Victors write the history.
right. And I'm okay and I'm okay with a lot of this stuff, right? You know, we're the good guys. We beat Nazis.
Well, think about that exactly. Perfect example. If the Germans won World War II, the Allies would be all the bad guys in all the history books. Now it's the other way around.
Right. But if we look, say, 5,000 years into the future, who's going to care who won or not, or alter how it actually happened? I don't see how anything so far back. So I like what you said, because I have a tendency to agree that there is a power grab motivation in it, right? But when you look at the pyramids is a good example, it's like, what are they so afraid that we would find out?
Technology, I'm guessing. In technology, the current modern technology does a really good job of controlling the population. So imagine, for example, energy was way more abundant than we thought. We didn't need to burn oil. That would just wreck the whole system right now that everybody has.
And you know what my theory with like JP Morgan is? It's not my theory.
The oil. Are you talking about the oil?
JP Morgan was steel.
Oh, steel. Okay.
All right. So he had all this steel, and they wanted to transmit electricity. Well, Tesla was figuring out lots of, I wouldn't call them free energy sources, but you know, his idea was that like energy is in abundance and we can just tap into it. We don't need a power generator and then these things to ship it. Well, it's like, well, if you're sitting on a pile of steel and somebody's about ready to make all your steel unnecessary. Anyway, so
same thing with the oil.
Right. So I can understand all that, but there's a lot of these things. I mean, you have the ancient ruins in Mesopotamia. And what's really troubling to me, we kind of talked a little bit about this before we started, is the sheer volume of stuff that, whether or not they alter it, we don't even know about yet. Or it's definitely not in any mainstream like textbooks. Like the pyramids are at least there. Everybody's seen a picture of the 3 pyramids there, right?
Sure.
So I was, scrolling through my TikTok as per usual, and there's this like enormous. First of all, it was really interesting how they pointed out like all these ancient structures are sort of in a belt in the northern hemisphere of the Earth. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Not too far.
Yep.
North, not too far south. Well, then they run across these stone circles in Africa, and it's 10 million stones, thousands of acres, and their patterns are, I don't know if you watched it thoroughly, but their patterns, you ever seen when they vibrate the sand on
sure,
the plate?
The frequencies, yeah.
Right. So they arranged their stones in patterns of different frequencies.
Here's a question. Has anybody tried to replicate that exact frequency tone?
Well, they have tone generators, and they
because it's pretty easy if you kind of look of a wide view angle and you could see what frequency that pattern makes if you kind of put it in the computer.
Right. Well, then what's the purpose of making 100-mile rock outlines?
I mean, is it an antenna? Because that's how antennas work. Antennas have a physical element, like a piece of metal that is that length to make that particular frequency, and we pulsate it, to give it the speed of it,
Right.
but a physical antenna makes that frequency. So maybe their antennas.
I don't know.
And I know they've been around for so long. Like at this point, like you said, 5,000 years down the road, nobody's going to know what these are. Like what is built today in today's time that's going to last 1,000 years in the future?
It isn't much. Not wood. Wood does not.
Well, like, okay, maybe the Capitol granite statues and buildings. That'll last for a while.
Right, but they, getting back to these ancient civilizations, they didn't build a statue and then have a bunch of wooden huts or grass huts or, tents and teepees around it. They built whole freaking cities. It's like,
exactly,
out of just incredible stones. So I keep getting back to this idea, why are they covering up this stuff?
How do you know? Okay, here's an idea. What makes you say they're covering up versus there's opportunity to, how can I say it? Like for that one example you gave, that they're building a tourist attraction over it. Maybe they know there's nothing there, but they want everybody to think there's something in it, so they're going to build the tourist attraction so people come. Because if there was something important there, why would they want people to come there? It would be hidden. It would be secret. Just like the Stargate. I love the Stargate series. You ever watch the Stargate series?
No.
Oh my gosh, SG-1. Perfect. Where they basically uncovered, it's a top secret. They uncover this ancient artifact, and it's the Stargate. And it's top secret. Nobody's going to know about it. So if something's like that technology is uncovered, we're probably never going to know about in our lifetimes. And like the pyramids, it's kind of too hard to cover that up, right? So we're not going to know the truth about it. They're going to say it's a tomb for some dead guy.
Right. The problem with it is like when you see what they covered up, it's hard to think that they could, like, because that's what it just keeps getting back and forth to. It's like you could cover up all this stuff and then not do it over here, and then all these other ones. Like, why would you cover one up? That's actually literal. We're talking about like bury with dirt. But I just find this fascinating. The idea that in all of the generations, there wasn't like somebody's grandfather who was running around Africa and said, you know what? There's giant rocks. And,
Yeah, there has to be some sort of organization, right? Big organization with the proper technology. It wasn't just like some guy like, hey, let's start placing these stones, and they turn out to be a perfect frequency. Whatever that is. I don't know what frequency that is. I'm very curious about it, though.
No, I'm curious. And, the Göbekli Tepe issue, when you start, I get what you're saying, too. Like, you can make something a little bit kind of forbidden and make it a lot more attractive. So if you...
There you go. Exactly. Well, here, I'll give you another one. Speaking of frequency, because frequencies is more of a, I don't know, ancient technology. I don't know if you call it ancient, but it's not used much today, right? Anything that uses sound or just any vibrational frequencies is not used today in pretty much anything. Like, right, ultrasound, maybe it's used in that. Brushing your teeth, the Sonicare toothbrush used in that. But other than that, it's not. It's not an everyday use. Maybe microwave, but microwave is more of a different, it's kind of like energy and frequency together. So anyways, there was an episode, and I think I mentioned it before, of Mythbusters. And they developed it was used compressed air to move this weight back and forth, right? And they attached to the bridge, the Bay Area Bridge, before they tore it down. So they already had the new strand, so they could just play with the old one. and they put that on one of the beams, and they started playing with the frequency until it resonated the same as the bridge or the structure. And they went down the bridge, like a long way down the bridge, and they could feel the whole bridge vibrating. They said it's like a big truck driving by with a little device about this big.
Okay.
And here's the thing, that I can't find that episode.
Of course not.
I found it where it's like pre-recorded with somebody else, so it's like named differently, but it's not like one of the episodes where you could replay it from the Discovery Channel. So maybe they stumbled upon something, and the people that don't want this technology used or known, they're like, hey, cut this out.
I mean, are we talking about just transportation?
It could be anything. I mean, if you could resonate on that frequency, since we're talking about frequencies, you could pretty much disassemble anything. Who knows? Maybe there's a frequency generator where it like slices stones because it's in the same, or it resonates on that same stone frequency, and you could just get like a piece of metal and push down, and it'll cut right through it like it's sand.
You know what I've thought is, so you want to cut like a square block that is made out of rock.
Sure.
And you want it to have like certain dimensions. Like is there like a frequency for that exact size and shape?
Yeah.
So you just like, no cutting, no quarrying, you just find a rock big enough and, hit it, and it just severs at all those points.
And why not? I mean, technically it makes sense to me if you have, let's say, two things. One, the frequency where that stone resonate at, so it becomes liquid like sand. And then you could point those frequencies in a certain direction where it hits this spot, this spot, this spot, and boom, there's your stone.
You need to cut a lot of stones. And it's crazy because we like talk about what it would take to just do one pyramid, right? And as far as like blocks per hour.
Sure. What is the manpower? Like if we did let's say they did it on the current technology we think they have.
That's the thing.
Which is chisels.
Like they can't do it today. As advanced as we are.
No, I don't. Why not? Yeah, we can. We could do it. The massive amount of technology it would take. I mean, we could probably pour the cement into it instead of.
We have nothing today that can cut stones that big, that precise.
I don't. Well, because there's not needed. I'm sure we could develop it. I'm sure we could develop a diamond blade saw that's 20 feet long. That just technology is unused today. We don't have no need for it, so that's why we don't have it. I don't see why we couldn't develop it. Well, sure we could, but then to move each stone, and then think about this: the manpower and energy it would take to do something like a pyramid is for what reason? Like imagine the food that would take just to feed the population to build the pyramids with chisels.
No, and conveniently, there's like hardly any tools left behind or any. It was
gardening tools probably left behind.
Just
to tend to the gardens.
So few of them, and then where's the waste management system? That many people, where are they going to the bathroom?
Well, I mean, 5,000 years, a lot of things could change. 5,000 years, but I bet you, if it's that old, well, who knows what happened for the 1,000 years? Maybe people like found it. The civilization died out. Some virus, right, that built it. And then somebody found 1,000 years later, they come up to this and then they build the city next to it and they're like, let's use that as a tomb for some guy.
I don't know. It just seems, because it wasn't that long ago.
In the grand scheme of things, yes.
But it literally wasn't that long ago from today when the pyramids were discovered.
Well, over how many times? It's just discovered with our current knowledge or current knowledge.
Sure.
How can I say?
I mean, we have the printing press now and things like that,
sure.
So we can distribute the knowledge so that the people who discover it. But still, I keep getting back, kind of rounding back to this. It's like up until like last week, I had never heard about all these, stones placed in Africa. That's a lot. And we're not, I grew up, it was the 90s where we had internet,
Sure.
you know,
Information started to move a lot quicker.
but seems like there's just more and more discoveries. They're finding the other thing about a lot of these discoveries, because the stone circles fascinated me for another particular reason, which is the age. I don't know if you caught the part about how slow the patina grows on the outside
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. On the
Right.
tools and stuff.
No, the stones. The stones that are there are made out of this like black rock, and then they get this like rusty brown patina.
Yep, yep.
And the thickness
Oh, the thickness
of
it.
the patina
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
on the stones is saying this stuff's a lot more ancient than it's supposed to even be able to be.
Okay, let me give you a theory I've heard. So imagine civilization being where we are many times over, our current stage. And we destroyed ourselves one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And civilization restarted. Got to this point, destroyed. Because think about it, 5,000 years is not very long in grand scheme of things. But what can last in those 5,000 years? Yeah, okay, let's say you take this room, this building, these walls, the steel that's this building is built, and nothing will last 5,000 years. Everything would crumble and disappear into dirt.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no saving, right? Maybe things that are spinning in outer space, but then again, you need controls to keep that stuff floating that are spinning around, because again, they're gonna get sucked into Earth and burn up, gone. So there's really nothing you could save other than like stone and granite from 5,000 years ago. But let's say 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years. Imagine these spans.
Right.
And go back 50,000 years. How many times could we have gotten to this stage, destroyed humanity, and then humanity rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt? Many times over, right? There's a very fascinating book. It's called Mote in God's Eye. The name is very strange. It has nothing to do with Mote in God's Eye. It's kind of abbreviation, but anyways, it's an alien civilization they discovered, and this alien civilization could only live for like 15 years, and like after 5 years or 10 years, they live very short lives, right? And they have to procreate or they die. So they have to keep procreating or they basically die off real quick. So they're always procreating. So the civilization is also very intelligent and they're very technical. And when like the people discovered it, they came to their planet and trying to communicate to them and stuff. And then they're looking at their dirt and they look at the dirt, pick up the dirt and say, you know what, this is not actually dirt or sand. This is just pieces of things like buildings and equipment. And because that civilization basically killed themselves off so many times and rebuilt, because when you populate so fast, you will, overpopulate and then you'll kill each other off, overpopulate. And they've done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So imagine humanity kind of like that, not to that extreme. But again, there's a lot of things we'll never know because this history, there's no way to kind of keep it. Oh yeah, well, let me finish. And then this civilization built like these domes of history. So like they kept all this technology in these domes all over the planet. So when the civilizations destroy each other, they go back and kind of speed their rebuilding process. So maybe that's what they're hiding, is the domes of knowledge.
Maybe. I don't know. I kind of like what you're saying with that. I think, because even stone structures only last so long.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. Like 5,000 years, 10,000, and then you go 50,000 years. That's anything lasts 50,000 years. Everything get demolished. I mean, maybe there's some cave like holes that were dug out, right?
Right.
And even then, who knows?
I think like 50,000 years, which really in the scope of this timeline that we're, 13 point something billion years, 50,000 years is still
Nothing.
like,
Take a little,
I know, it's just like a sliver at the
little
end.
hair. Yeah, right.
But when we do look back, what's interesting is that you look at Mesopotamia, Egypt, all these things that they continue to find, because they're not, it'd be interesting if it was just like around Egypt or on that continent, but they're fine. The Mayans and the Inca and all the people over here, the other one, like
The similar technology where
it's like almost the same stones.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. In the same design.
So it's like we're almost only looking back one major setback. Like all of the, the ruins that we see today is kind of like the pinnacle of just the last time it didn't work out.
Exactly. I agree. Maybe one time before that too, or something.
Maybe.
Like the pyramids, for example. Maybe they've been around for a little bit longer.
What's crazy, that's a lot of these things that we're talking about are much older than the pyramids. The pyramids are, of all of these things, starting to become almost like a newer build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, here's another theory. I think this is what I was trying to tell you originally, is the pyramids at their peak when they're built are where we are now. And then we, of course, develop computers and AI, and the AI takes over. And then we're all controlled and exterminated by AI. And then finally an EMP comes, wipes all AI out, and we're all back to Stone Age.
The comet wipes out all the computers and finally stops suppressing man so we can...
Exactly. And then we're back to, we start over.
I don't
know.
But there's just like, in the recent little skits that I've been down, have you seen the ancient stone structures of Japan?
No. I didn't know Japan had ancient.
Right.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Okay, so the two most recent ones for me are these giant megalithic structures.
I know the Asian continent, let's say the European continent, the African continent, South America. All these continents have ancient structure, but Japan, that's actually fascinating. I didn't know they had any ancient.
They do. Okay. And when you actually start to, they're just finding more and more. Like they're starting to find them.
Basically, we're deep, digging deeper. And plus, don't forget, we're getting more satellite technology, sonar technology. LiDAR. Exactly. So we're finding a lot more.
And that LiDAR stuff is what's got me frustrated with Göbekli Tepe. They've done that, and it's massive.
And they're like, let's just put some buildings on top of it.
And then they basically said, no, we're just not getting around to it right now. And it seems too nonchalant, too casual. It's like, yeah. And they're also, as they're building this stuff, they're trekking over it and,
destroying the evidence of whatever was there. But maybe the funding isn't there for the discovery. Because at the end of the day, like, who's going to fund this, right? Governments are not really interested. If you look at the funding from governments, I'm sure it's like the tiny sliver of hair for funding discovery.
Are they not interested, or are they covering up?
That's a good point as well. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's if it's not covering up, then it's just no interest in it. There's no funding in it to discover. Or, when the discoveries were made, the right people heard and they're like, okay, hush this down. There's nothing there.
And then have you been following at all the Eye of the Sahara or the rickshaw structure?
That I have not heard.
So
Eye of the Sahara.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So big we couldn't see it.
Oh, it's one of those.
Okay, so big it kind of went under the radar.
Wow.
There's people that are out there making correlations to it being the location of Atlantis.
Fascinating. Is that the one that's between the two continents?
It is on the western border of Africa,
Okay.
of the
Okay.
African continent. So,
So on West Africa, basically.
yeah, Africa
Yeah,
left.
Yeah, Africa left, exactly.
And it's huge. It's absolutely enormous, and it's so big that, again, it was.
So that was a structure that big.
So that's the thing, is it's not a structure anymore. What it is a strong correlation to a shape that works. If you listen to the description of Atlantis, right?
You're talking about where it's the circle and there's like a bullseye almost.
Right. And this fits really well.
Because we're not talking about like that cloud looks like an elephant, that one looks like a teddy bear.
No.
Okay.
No, these are. So yeah, that's.
So maybe that was 60,000 years ago. There was a continent there, and that was a huge infrastructure. There was a huge city.
And then the other one. So everybody's heard of Atlantis, but how many people have heard of the Tartarians?
Yeah, never.
So.
Okay.
That's right. It's like, and here's the crazy part. We're not living in an information deficit right now.
No, we're not. Everything's available. Almost everything.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Lots of us could go on Google Earth and look up pretty much almost anything. Right, there's very little things where they're actually blocked off, military installations, and even most military installations are all just go ahead and look at them. Right, Area 51, go ahead and look at it, no problem.
That's just from sand.
It's
all underground. Good luck.
Exactly. Again, I come back to, let's say, because we have the technology right now to destroy most of humanity. Right.
Oh yeah.
With EMPs, nuclear weapons, because if there is some sort of all-out nuclear war right now, EMPs, for the most part, will destroy all electrical grids. Everything's done, right? And then the nukes falling will, destroy most life, and the life will be inhabitable for most Earth for a long time, right? So we're living almost in a time where, that's why I asked you that question. What today that is built that could last 5,000 years? Imagine like tomorrow, everybody just shoots nuke at each other. Everything's destroyed. None of us survive. There's a small population here and here survives on certain islands or edges of continents.
No, they're gonna find the old stuff that was already there before us.
That's what I'm saying. Like 1,000 years in the future, they're going to find the pyramids and say, ooh, look at these pyramids. It's 6,000 years. I wonder what they were. And like they go to the North America, nothing's here. 1,000 years in the future, nothing's going to be left. Maybe the like I said, the granite buildings in like Washington, D.C., if they are granite. They're not stucco, but lots of them I know are granite.
Yeah. No, and there's
like Lincoln, sitting there, but he's not going to have like a leg and an arm, just missing head. And like, oh, this must have been a king back in the day, right?
President means king.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I agree that there's not much today that's going to last. Steel is useless. I don't know. I mean, it's cool to make stuff out of.
It's all temporary. Like I was thinking the other day, like our lives are like a flicker. Because to us, 100 years, if you're really, really lucky, it's a pretty long time.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, our lives are just like boom, 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 boom.
No, I know. We blink in and out in just a.
Yeah, we think it's a long time, but no, like our lives are like flies, No, like a spark.
It is like, I have had that thought many times driving in traffic. Our lives are like two cars passing. It's just like,
boom. Exactly.
And in that moment, when you kind of look over and you see the other driver and the other driver sees you,
time like stands still for a second there.
And that little moment right there, it exists.
It's like you almost created something. It's like a creation.
Right. And then it's over.
Yeah.
That's what I think our lives look like. If you were if you were a very long-lived entity, we would or those, you remember those little snakes you get in the fireworks? They're
Yeah,
those little
yeah,
pellets, right?
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Little spark.
yeah. So I am just very suspicious.
I'm
And
right there with you, and I don't think we'll ever know in our lifetimes. You and I will never know the truth behind a lot of these ancient projects. Because, like I said, humanity destroys years in the future. They're going to discover these same huge projects like the pyramids. They're gonna, instead of us going, oh look, they're 5,000 years, they're gonna go, oh look, they're 6,000 years. I wonder where they were, and they had known nothing about our civilization. So how many civilizations rose and died? How much history is hidden? How much history is known? Those are all big questions that there's a good chance we will never know the answer.
but I don't know if I'm okay with that. Like I'm good not knowing about it, but because I don't know about it. Right? But these things just keep springing up. And then the explanations that they give you, it starts to just make me think, like, who's fucking coming up with this shit?
Unless we have some sort of time portal we could look through and browse through history, we'll never know.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
And with that, I'm done.
Okay.